Herman. Next up, we got the Reilly Herman. But before that,
something that you should know about Reilly Herman is that she's filled with so much joy, and she carries happiness with her everywhere she goes.
One thing that you have to know about Reilly Herman is that she's the sweetest girl and she loves her grandma Nola.
One thing that you need to know about Reilly is that she's obsessed with Bath & Body Works. All we do is text each other the sales that they're having, and then we go like that day and waste so much money there, hence all my candles sitting on my dresser.
Give it up for Reilly Herman.
Give it up for Reilly.
Give it up for the Reilly Herman!
Yeah, seriously, give it up. Me and Gabby did spend all of our money at Bath & Body Works on candles, so that's why I'm broke. But my name's Reilly, I'm a senior at Stony Creek, and I'm going to be 100% honest. Getting up here, I'm terrified to speak. And it's supposed to be super exciting to give your last words, but for me, it's something that I'm scared of. So does anyone have any kind of like crazy fear? Yeah. So for me, my biggest fear is probably throw up. Yeah, it's horrible, it scares me. And we were on the way home from NTS like 3 years ago probably. It was 3 a.m., we were asleep. We had just won, so we were like really excited, but we were also exhausted. And in the middle of the night, we were sitting there. I was sitting next to Chloe, we were asleep, and our friend behind us just said, "I think I'm gonna be sick." And we looked at her, we stood up, and we ran to the front of the bus, and we were like, "No, like, you're not gonna throw up by us." And we let that fear control us. We were under a blanket, we were so scared, we were like crying, we were so dramatic, it was so bad. And our small group leader was like, "You're crazy, stop." And so that's a fear that we had, and we let that control us. But tonight, I want to talk about real fear. And I think that real fear, the definition of that is the thing that you're terrified of that breaks your heart the most when it happens. I think it holds us back from experiencing the fullness of God. And for me, my biggest real fear is people leaving. And this year, I think I experienced that a lot. I had a lot of friends leave my life, a lot of friends that I haven't seen in a while. I've had a couple of friends pass away this year. But I think the biggest thing for me was when my parents told us they were getting divorced, and I was like, my family's gonna leave me. And I began to let these fears control me and take over. And while this fear controlled me, I learned this year that perfect love casts out all fear, and vulnerability will set you free. So my first point is that fear causes us to forget ourselves. For me, fear caused me to forget my identity. And when people leave us, we don't think, "Oh wow, they loved me so much, like that's why they left me, I was so great." No, we think, "Wow, I must not have been good enough. Wow, I must not have been worthy enough. Wow, they must not have loved me enough." And I think fear can make us feel alone. It makes us feel abandoned. And so for me, when people left me, I felt like, "Oh wow, they don't love me. Wow, I feel like I'm not good enough." And I began to think like, "Oh, that's what God thinks of me too. Like he must think I'm not good enough. He must have given up on me. He doesn't love me anymore." And so 1 John 4:18 says, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out all fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not been perfected in love." Fear cannot define who we are, because we are perfected and made whole in his love. But we cannot let go of our fear until we let the Lord tell us who we are, and until we believe that and believe in the love he has for us. So this year I slowly started to learn that love. I learned that there's no fear in his love, and that he wanted to use my biggest fear of people leaving to teach me who I was. And it was a super slow process, and I'm still going through that. But finally, like listening to who the Lord said I was, and that he said I was good enough, and he said I was worthy, and he loved me, and living fully in that identity, I was able to kind of step out of that fear. And when we are perfected in God's love, and we know when we can receive that, we no longer have to be afraid. because fear cannot catch what it can no longer reach. And these fears can't catch us and reach us if we know who we are and we know God's love for us, and how much He wants us to love Him too. And so the biggest way for me learning that perfect love casts out fear was through vulnerability, which is my second point. And I think that vulnerability sets us all free. And by being vulnerable with the people that you love and the people that love you, you learn that you're not alone. You're not alone in your fear. You're not alone in struggles. And for me, I felt like I had to keep it all in. I felt like I couldn't tell people what was going on because like it was going to be a burden, or that no one else is going through something similar. But those are like totally lies from the enemy, because being vulnerable isn't being weak, but it will allow you to be set free by the one who loves you the most. God uses our vulnerability to bind us together with other people. And the first time for me being fully vulnerable about what was going on in my life was at Fall Retreat this year, with my small group. And I remember like sitting there the first night in small group, and I was like trying to hold every emotion back and everything that was going on. And my small group leader was like, "Reilly, do you have anything?" I was like, "No, okay, yeah, actually this is what's going on. My life sucks. Like, this is what I'm afraid of right now, and my biggest fear is becoming a reality." And I felt like I was alone. But as we started to talk more, I found out that a lot of the girls in our small group had gone through similar things, or were going through similar things, and that helped. And it helped me feel at peace, and it helped me feel free. And I just remember sitting there, and we were all talking, and the Lord was like, "You don't need to be afraid anymore. I've brought you these people." So I think a really big thing in stepping out of your fear is getting vulnerable. And whether that's with your small group or your friends or your family or like someone you don't really know, I think it's super important to be honest with them about what's going on. But I don't think I really realized that I needed to be vulnerable with God first. I didn't really learn that until like literally last night. I went to Smash this weekend, which is the women's retreat at Spring Hill. It was really fun. But we were in the middle of a worship night, and God was just like, "You haven't been vulnerable with me about your pain and like your fear. You've talked to everyone else but not me." And so that's when He just said, like, "I was with you the whole time. I was sitting with you. I'm never gonna leave you. You're perfected in my unfailing love." And I think that's super important to know, because we have to admit to God like we're not okay and we're afraid. Because it's okay to not be okay, because when you're not okay, God's going to meet you in your pain and in your fear. So when we're vulnerable with Him, He's waiting for us. And once we're vulnerable, then we can rest. We can rest in His presence, because He wants to free us. He wants to grab a hold of us and tell us that He's never going to let us go, that we're His sons and daughters, and He loves us more than we know. And so if you would have told me 3 years ago, 2 years ago, last year, or 6 months ago, at the beginning of this year, that I was going to be up here giving last words, I would have said, "No, like, my life's great. Like, there's nothing I'd ever have to talk about. Like, it's fine. I'm not afraid of anything." And I wish I would have known sooner that I needed to be vulnerable in my fear, and I wish I would have known, like, my identity can't be taken away, because it can't define me by what I'm afraid of. So I think with open arms, we need to run to the Lord. We need to know that He never let us go, and that He wants to take us on a journey. He wants to free us of all of our crippling fears, because His love is so much greater than any fear we could ever have. So the question I have for you guys to leave you with is, will you live in your fully known, embraced identity and be vulnerable in your pain and fear? Or are you going to let fear continue to control your life?
Let me say this to you though. She said something, and so we met up working through it this week, and she was we said that at Desert Oasis. I was like, "Man, if you would have told me in September you were gonna get up and teach on fear and conquering fear through vulnerability," I would have been like, "I hope so." And I don't mean that badly, but like to literally, like, we sat, and as she walked through this message, it was like, "Oh my gosh, look at the journey Jesus brought you on." You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. Like, it's absolutely insane. And honestly, what popped in my head today was I was thinking of David and Goliath. And I was thinking of the fearlessness that David went after with Goliath. And I feel like as you came up here today, and not only encourage these guys in fear and being vulnerable in your fear, like it was like a David and Goliath thing. Like you're walking away tonight with like Goliath's head. Like you've conquered it. You've defeated the battle. Like you've done it. And like I'm just so proud of you because that was huge. Like that was so huge for you. So carry that vulnerability when you leave to Hope College, all right? Because people need it there too. Love you. You're the bomb. So good. All right.